Howdy, Serena from Spin and Dye here, and today we are going to do a wet felted scarf. Now this is something that I've done before. I enjoyed doing it, but I was particularly inspired to give it a shot today because of the fiber that I'm going to be using, which I'll show you in a minute. But in case you aren't familiar with the wet felting process, let me just give you a quick breakdown of what it is. When we needle felt items, what we're doing is we're using the needle to punch the fibers together, and they will start to tangle and tighten and grab onto each other, and that's what creates the felted object. With wet felting, we can create a flat fabric, but we're going to felt it together using agitation, water, soap, and a little bit of weight. We're gonna lay it all out flat and have something on top of it. So it will be a slightly different process. What I'm hoping to make today is a scarf. This will be a wet felted scarf. It's not going to have any type of backing or support like a silk scarf underneath. The entire structure is going to come from the fiber itself. It's a really fun process to do. It lets you get your creative juices flowing and use up some of those bits and bobs that get left over from spinning and that kind of thing. So all of the materials that I use today are very easily purchased. I got mine off of Amazon. I will include the links. I am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but if you want to just buy what you see here, you can do that through Amazon. There are kits available. I've seen some on the Woolery, and I have used one of those kits in the past. I did really like it, but it depends on if you're more of a DIYer or if you would prefer to have everything just kind of supplied for you. So what we are going to need is some type of bubble wrap. This is a 12-inch, and I do have 2 layers next to each other. They're sitting on top of some just basic towels. Nothing fancy about the towels. They're just towels that I tend to use for everyday things, not like for showering and that kind of thing. You could use your showering towels if that's all you had. I try not to because my husband prefers it if I don't let my yarn and fiber obsession kind of infiltrate every section of our lives. So I have that. I have a bowl for water, and I have this very cool thing. We're going to test it out today, but it actually fills water in the bulb here, and then it will sprinkle out from the front, so we're not over soaking our fiber. I have some soap. Now this is an olive oil soap. It's a very basic, no fragrance, gentle soap that we're going to use to just create those suds, get some agitation going. But you could really truly use any kind of soap. I have done felted soaps before where I just wrap the fiber around the soap itself, and I've done it with like Dove soaps. Never had a problem. So that's up to you. If you have allergies and that kind of thing, a basic soap will work out really well anyway. So last but not least, I do have some netting here. Now this is our big question mark factor on this project in particular, because I've never used this kind of material for wet felting before, but I think it's going to work out well. It's the netting that's used for screen printing. So it is a very breathable fabric. You can hopefully see my hand through it here. It's very breathable, but the holes themselves are small, and it is a it's not a natural fiber. So I'm hoping that the fiber will not, my merino here will not grab on to this and try to adhere. We'll see how it works out. My fingers are crossed because I'm really excited for this project. Have a pair of scissors because I am going to need to cut this down because it's a new piece. And then the very last thing I have is this pretty cool hand tool. It's for agitating. Once we get our scarf laid out and wet, we're going to need to agitate it. Now you can use your fingers for this, but if you have treated nails or anything like that, you could get something like this, and we're going to see how it works out today. Again, this is something I haven't used before, kind of like the netting here, but I think it's going to work out really well. It's a hard plastic, it's very rigid, it's got little nubs on the one side to create suds and agitation, and so we'll see how that works out, particularly on the edges. I think this is going to be nice to have. So that is our kit. I am going to readjust the camera so you're looking down at the project that I'm working on rather than just looking at my face. I know, you're disappointed, but it's gonna work out for the best, I promise. And then once I have it all set up, I will do the big reveal on the fiber that we're gonna be using today because I'm super excited about it. So hold please, and I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So quick camera change angle. I hope it works out really well. It looks good on my side, so I'm hoping that it looks good on yours. So down to the big reveal. This was a fiber that I had, or roving that this was a batt that I had intended to spin for Tour de Fleece this year. And I went to open it up to start spinning it, and when I saw it in its original form, just like this, I was like, oh my God, this is too gorgeous to spin up. I want to keep the integrity of the look here. So that is what we were going to try and spin. I have 2 of these, or spin. That's what we're going to try and felt. I do have 2 of these. I'm going to lay them out next to each other, and then I'm going to slowly stretch them. Now, if you watch other wet felting videos, you will see that oftentimes, hang on, this is going to be loud. Oh, I guess I should say, this is a, can you see that? I don't know if you can, but it is a Nunoco set. It's called Rhubarb. I don't know how old it is. I got it as part of something kind of like an estate sale. So it may or may not still be available. I should have probably looked that up. Maybe I will and mark it here on the video, but we'll see. Sometimes I forget to do things. But I'm gonna line these up. Now you can see this one, this half got stretched out a little bit. This one's gonna need some stretch to it. So I'm gonna set this aside, my little storage box here, and I'm just going to gently pull this out and see how long I can make it. Now, if you watch other felting, wet felting videos, you will see that they have a very specific technique for laying out the roving in small, almost feather-sized pieces. And that's generally how I've done it before. I've never tried it this way, but I'm hoping that it will work out because the batt itself was actually pretty thick, and I'm hoping that the fibers will, while they're still all pointing in the same direction, of course, that they'll overlap enough that they'll be able to grab onto each other. When you are felting, things will shrink a little bit, so expect some shrinkage to happen as you work. Okay, so that's one half down. I do have the ends of my bubble wrap weighted down right now just because there is a slight breeze today. I am doing this video outside for a couple reasons. Now, I know one of the ones you might be thinking is that I'm doing it this way because it's going to get messy because we're going to be working with water. That is actually not the case. You really don't want to get it so sopping, dripping wet that you're flooding the floor beneath you, okay? So that is actually not why. The reason why is, number one, it's pretty humid today, and I thought that might help the felting process. And then number two, and I'm sorry to say this if you are in one of the places that is being just hammered this summer with heat, somehow here in Texas, at least in central Texas, we have managed to get a fairly mild summer, including lovely cloudy days and some actual rain in July, which it never really happens. So I thought I wouldn't do this outside. Hopefully the audio quality will be okay, and you won't have to turn your speakers up too loud to be able to hear me. So this is actually still a little bit shorter than I would have liked. Probably about 5 feet long. So I'm going to try and stretch it out just a little bit further. I do have a pretty decent overlap where the seam will be between the two batts. And you can see that it's starting to thin out. Now, when it comes to wet felting, you can go with something very, very delicate and have some light holes in there. Even some big holes I've seen. I personally don't like the big hole look. It's a personal taste, and no shade on those that do like it, but I don't mind something that is a little bit more ethereal and softer. I do not like, well, I guess I'm actually pretty, I do have a pretty strong Goldilocks kind of principle when it comes to felting. I do not like thickly felted items. I think they look a little bit too bulky and they just don't fit my aesthetic. And I don't really like incredibly thin, like I said, with the big holes, because it just doesn't fit my aesthetic. So I am a little bit of a Goldilocks felting snob. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize for it. It's my tastes. That's what I like. I will say, if you're setting something up like this at home and you have to do what I did, which is doubling up on your bubble wrap, do make sure that you give yourself a nice overlap of that bottom layer, because you don't want to felt to your towels. Let's see, how are we doing here? So this is fairly thick at the center. It's a little bit thinner at the ends. That's okay. Heck, if it doesn't work out as a scarf, if it's just a little bit too short, I'll use it as a table runner. But it is probably about a 1/4 inch thick at the fluffiest parts, and that is with the air still in there. That is how fluffy it is. Okay, so I'm gonna stop messing with it because I'm gonna end up making it too thin and be sad. Now, I got this, I can't remember how big this piece is, but it is a large piece. So I'm gonna lay it over. This might get a little bit chaotic to look at, and I apologize, but I will have to trim it down. So okay, so I have my piece fully covered by the netting or screen printing material, and so I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut it. I am going to give myself just a touch of leeway on the size so that until I get everything kind of felted down, I have some coverage on the edges there. So give me just a moment while I finish up these cuts. So I've got that down. I'm going to put this off to the side. I did end up spreading this over. So just to recap where we're at so far, we have layer of towel, layer of bubble wrap. Bubble wrap adds agitation, that's why we use it. Layer of the fiber that we are choosing to use. Because they were bats, I did not do the feathering method. And then I put some screen printing netting on the top. The netting is wide enough to cover my entire piece. Now we get to introduce the water. So I'm gonna take my tool here, hope you can see that. I'm gonna take my water and my soap. So the soap that I have, like I said, it is a natural olive oil soap. It's got a name on it. It's in Greek. I'm not going to do that to the Grecian people and butcher it. But like I said, the link will be in the comments if you want, or in the description if you want to use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my soap just a little bit, get it a little bit damp. And you can see I'm just kind of rotating it in my hand, getting some suds going, and I'm letting it drip down. I'm going to rinse those suds off in the water, set my soap to the side for a minute, and start to put this down. See how that soap is showing up? I'm going to take my little bobble here. I'm going to suck up some water, which it is doing, just very slowly. And you'll see it's going to rain out. Now I've got some suds in there already, and I'm just going to let this rain. I am going to try and work the seam pretty quickly, just because I don't want things to shift as I felt. So if I can get this felted down first, that would be ideal. So I'm going to set this to the side. I'm going to grab that soap, sud my hands up for a little bit of extra soapy goodness. Oh, I meant to take my rings off. Okay, you're going to want to do this beforehand. I did not. But the soap is helping them slide pretty nice. Okay. All right, got my hands set it up. And I'm just going to, in small circular motions, I will use the tool in just a moment, but we are going to start with just hands on project. Now this one, I hope this soap is not too thick to get through the holes of this screen printing, because you do not want it to be that thick. But it looks like it's making it through, so I think we'll be okay. So, how does it feel? When you're doing this, when you add the water on top of your roving is still fluffy. Hopefully you can see this over here where it's still kind of fluffy. What we're trying to do is agitate it flat so that all the air comes out. All those fibers have nothing else to do with their time than to grab onto each other. Grab a little bit more soap here. I wonder. We're gonna give this a shot. All I'm doing, I'm not pushing down hard. I am just rubbing the soap along the netting to kind of scrape off that wet layer of material on the bar. All right, and we've got a fair amount of soap in there now. Now also notice I don't have water pooling and just like dripping over the sides. You don't hear water flowing because we have not used a lot of water, and we will not be using a lot of water. We'll use a little bit more than what we've put on so far, but we're not going to be over flooding my backyard with soapy water. Okay, so we can start, and hopefully it's getting nice definition so you can see where it's dry over here, nice and fluffy, and then it kind of comes in. This is the part I've been working, and over here where it is already wet, it's still fluffy because it hasn't been worked yet. So we are going to keep going here. This can take a while. This is the step that you definitely do not want to skimp on, because if you skimp, you're not creating structure. Anytime we are working with fiber, raw, for lack of a better term, raw fiber. So we're talking for spinning, for felting, in some cases for weaving, and even for that arm knitting, if that's what you're doing right now. Anytime we are working with raw fiber, the way that you want to look at it is your job is to add structure to that fiber in order to make it stable enough for the project you're trying to do. If you're spinning, we add that structure by adding twist. If you are arm knitting, you add that structure by the stitches, although I will say, not a very strong structure. And in this case, we are adding that structure by connecting and adhering those fibers to each other. All right, so we are not adding that structure using any other outside material. We are just using the nature of the wool fibers to adhere to themselves. So we're going to add that structure with agitation. Generally, that is why it's recommended that your fibers be pointed in different directions as well, because you're going to create, I'm sorry, hang on one second. Okay. Because you're going to create more opportunity for the fibers to adhere to each other when they're pointed in different directions. But we don't want to do that because we don't want to lose the integrity of the fiber. So we're going to do it this way. And I actually think it might be working, but we'll see for sure in a bit. Now I will say this silk screen material, the one thing that's working out really nice is it does kind of get like a air bubble looking bit where it's not kind of stuck on to the fiber yet. And so that kind of helps me know I've still got felting to do. It is a bit of a nice indicator. So that was an unexpected plus to using this screen printing material. Because as I said, this is a new one for me. Never tried it before. Now I'm making hopefully a scarf, maybe a table runner. We'll find out when it's done. But I think it is important to note that we are essentially just making fabric. So you could turn this into anything. It can be stitched, although that's not something that, that's not a process that I've done much or any of, but you can use this as a fabric and work it that way as well. I just choose not to, because I like kind of this idea of making a full project without having to use any type of machine or anything like that. But if you wanted to make, say, a jacket or something like that, and that's something that you're used to doing, the sewing, then I would highly recommend it. So one thing you may notice me doing is kind of peeling this back and tucking my ends under as I go. You can do that early, but you'll notice it's also starting to kind of spread as I work. So I like to tuck my ends in as I get to them and just kind of see. It will not be a perfect edge. I'm fine with that. But if you wanted a perfect edge, you absolutely can do that early and then keep making adjustments as needed as you go. All right, I think we're gonna need more soap here in a minute and more water. All right. I hope this works because I got a bunch of different versions of gradients from this sale that they had at my guild, and if it works, I might have all kinds of fun gradient scarves for the fall this year. I am going to go thinner on them because A, I live in Texas, we just don't need thick scarves here, and B, I prefer a thinner scarf, something that's a little bit more, like I said earlier, ethereal, wispy, that kind of thing. So I will be planning to go thin like I am hopefully going to get out of this one, but we'll have to wait and see if it actually works. I was also getting a little worried because I do have some fiber poking through, and I was starting to worry that maybe it was still adhering, even though it's not a natural fiber and the holes are so small, as I mentioned at the beginning. But when I'm peeling this back, it seems to be peeling away without incident. So hopefully that's just little wisps that have poked through and not anything that's suggesting that we're creating a backing with this material here. Okay. Now you can see that the suds kind of appear as I run my hands over a specific section, but they do fade back in, and I'm just gonna adjust this real quick. And that means that I do not have too much water. If, when I push down, the water stayed pooled on the top, then I would have oversaturated my materials at that point, and I would probably stop for a minute, let it dry just a touch, and then keep going. Because I do find that oversaturated means things start to shift and change in a way that I'm not really going for. All right. So again, we're doing those small circles with the hands, but I'm going to pull my new tool out, and let's see how this does. Oh, it's louder. Huh. I will say it's a lot smoother. My hands are not going to get as raw from just kind of that motion. I wish the handle on this one was just a hair bigger, so I could either wear it comfortably like this, or grip it more like a handle. But this isn't bad, it's just not perfect. I will say I do feel like I'm getting more consistent coverage doing it with this little device instead of just by hand and winging it, because I do think I tend to miss parts as I'm going, and this just has a very even coverage. Okay, so I'm going to peel this back for just a second and tuck my end under and get an idea for where I'm at here. Hope I'm still in frame. Probably am, but if not, I'll be right back. I'm just tucking my end under, evening it out on the side here, and I'm going to grab my tool and go back in. Really agitate that up. I hope that sound isn't annoying on camera. I am starting to get just a touch oversaturated here. It also keeps wanting to slide off the edge, and I'm not quite sure why that's happening. Just a second here. All right. So I think that's coming in a little better. We're gonna keep working over here. Now, the bubble wrap is nice because it does add just a little bit different depths on the other side. It's not too rigid, so the fiber can flow over it, and because it's plastic, it's not going to adhere to any fibers that you have. The other thing I like about using the bubble wrap is even this cheap kind of bubble wrap that you get that's real thin and kind of flimsy, flexible, you can still use it more than once usually. Now, if you're putting a ton of weight on, then eventually, yes, you are going to pop those bubbles, but I'm not putting a ton of weight on. I'm letting either my hands or this tool do the work for me. So it's a gentle pressure that I'm putting on it, but for the most part, I'm hoping that the agitation, the soap, the bubbles on the bubble wrap is going to do the work for me. So this is looking okay. Looking okay. Let's come over here and do the same. I'm going to pause for just a minute. I'm going to check the camera and see if I need to move it, and then no, actually, no, I think we're good. I think we'll be good. I'm going to slide this down just a hair, and I think that should work out just fine. So I've still got my water over here. Probably gonna have to refill that in just a second. I'm gonna drip the water on first, starting at the center, and I will, with this side as well, work my way toward the edge. It worked well on the other side, and it seemed to prevent me from having any like creases appear in the center there. So that's what I'm going to do on this side as well. I'm going to start at that center. I am going to get my soap wet again because it has already dried. Like I said, we are having a mild summer in Texas, but a mild summer in Texas is like a hot summer pretty much everywhere else. Although maybe not this year. I know we're hitting records. So my soap had already dried, but no harm, no foul. That's what water is for. So we're gonna come in, add that soap, and again, all I'm doing is just sliding this over, letting that soapy residue kind of get wiped away onto this fabric. And now I'm gonna go in, starting with my hands again, and start to just agitate things a bit. Now, if you are sick of watching me do this at this point, you are welcome to fast forward to the next step in the video. I'll try and learn how to do that thing where I mark it in the time. But you're welcome to fast forward. Just know that this process is going to take you a minute. Do not skimp on this process. It is important, and it is what's going to give you the structure that you need for your scarf to stay stable. So if you're sick of hearing me talk at this point, just fast forward, and I'll see you on the other side. For everyone else, let's talk about what fiber you want to use when felting. There is no animal fibers that I know of that would not work for this process. However, there are fibers that will be better, fibers that will be worse, and as always, you want to make sure to keep your project in mind, because if you were doing something that was going to go against the skin, works just like spinning yarn or any other fiber craft that we do, and that is you want it to be a nice soft fiber. This is a 21 micron merino. It's beautiful, of course. It is hand dyed, but you can also use the natural, or not hand dyed, I'm sorry, it is dyed. But you could also just use natural fiber, no problem there, without any dyes on it. The only fibers that you cannot use are superwash fibers. Anything that doesn't felt is not going to make a felted scarf. I know what you're saying right now. You're going, come on, Serena. This is totally new information to me. I had no idea that that's how this worked. I hear you, I do. I was shocked myself, but it turns out that fibers that don't felt won't felt. So keep that in mind as you are selecting fibers for this process. Hang on one second. I'm just gonna fill my little bowl. There is an upside to doing this outside, and that is I'm right next to the faucet. The other thing is I'm not tripping over a dog. So, winds all around. Now I do have a lot of soap in here, but I don't have a ton of water, and I think I'm gonna need to add some more before I move on to the next section. And I am squeezing it. You don't really have to squeeze that hard on these little bubbles. They do also make these pretty cool caps, and I've used them when I taught wet felting to a class at the high school I teach at. They make these little toppers that are like a bottle cap, a plastic bottle cap, that you can put on any plastic bottle that you have, like soda bottle style, 20-ounce soda bottle. So you can also buy those. I don't have any right now, but I will see if I can find the ones that I ordered for the school, and if I can, I will include those in the description, because they are a nice little thing to do, especially if this is a project that you want to do at camp with the kids in the summer, that kind of thing, because you get to recycle those bottles for a second purpose. And the little bottle toppers are cheaper than these squeeze bottles are. So just another option that's out there if you want to try this out. I do recommend giving it a shot, some version of wet felting at some point, if you're already working with fiber, for a couple reasons. You know, number one, this goes from fiber to end product with very little steps in between, and more importantly, without much special equipment. I think in total for everything, including the netting, which you saw I got a fair amount of. I did get 2 of these in the pack that I bought, and 2 of the scraper, I don't know what these are, paddles we'll call them. And I think I spent like 40 bucks. So it doesn't require a lot of equipment, doesn't require a lot of space. I'm doing this outside because of the weather here, but you could do it inside because you're not, like I said, flooding that fiber. It's easy to do with multiple people. It's not incredibly loud. So I do recommend giving it a try at some point, some version of felting, just because it does kind of just make you think a little differently about fiber when you're looking at it. You know, how would that felt up? Would it look pretty? Is this the style I want? You know, that kind of thing. Or like in this case, I opened this one up and I was like, this is so pretty on its own. I don't want to ruin the integrity of it. I'll try felting it. That way I can keep the gorgeous color transitions that make this so special. All right. So I do need to turn my edge under a little bit. Now, if you do a turn method like this, you are going to create a right side and a wrong side of your scarf. If you keep the edge raw or you trim it down after the fact, you can have a two-sided scarf. I might trim it down depending on how crappy my improvised edge is here, but I'll probably just leave it as is. I like felted stuff to be a little bit more freeform. So that's all personal taste though. And that's one of the reasons why I love fiber arts, is that a lot of it does come down to personal taste. You know, you do what, when you're spinning, you're going to hold the fiber in the way that is most comfortable for you. When you're felting, you're going to lay it out in the way that's most comfortable for you, whatever it is. So I do like that. So I'm going to do just this last little section here that's still dry. And then we'll see where we're at. Probably put a little bit too much water on there for that small of a section, but it is what it is. And here we are now. Yeah, it's a little bit too much water. I don't know if you can see it pooling because the camera is kind of up, but it is pooling a little bit at the edge. I have a feeling once we get the soap on there and start mixing things up, it will be fine, but I could have gone a little bit less. And that was about one whole bobble worth. I think I've called that 3 different things at this point. Whatever. You get what I'm saying, so. You speak my language, you understand. All right. Start by agitating, then we'll turn that edge over and see where we're at. All I'm doing is just a very gentle turn. Nothing special, nothing huge. I'm not even measuring it out like you would for, say, what do they call that in sewing? A seam allowance, maybe? Nothing like that. I'm just giving it a gentle fold over so that I don't end up with a bunch of wispies on the end, because I don't like that look. All right, so I'm gonna keep going here. I don't know how long I've been talking, probably forever, because I do that. But I won't make you watch me do it all the way through. I will kind of fast forward through this section of the video, and then I will try to remember to mention how long I actually spent felting it when I'm finished, and kind of come back and slow the video back down. So we're going to keep going here. And I'll see you in just a little bit. So I'm going to slow this down for just a second so you can kind of see where we're at as I peel this away. I have to say, this screen printing netting has been wonderful. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to check and see if it seems like the fibers are mixing up. And they are, but they're very softly felted right now. And I am going to want to felt them up a little bit more. I'm going to very gently slide this back for 2 reasons. Number one, I wanted to make sure that this didn't split where my seam was between the 2 pieces. And also I want to see how it's looking on the other side. I am seeing some dry spots. What I will do is, after I finish felting from this side, I will flip it over and felt the other side up as well before drying it. So we're going to speed the video back up, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna peel this away and flip over our scarf, which I have to say, I knew what I was doing when I set this one aside. I really love the colors. All right, so I am being gentle because you can hear there was some adherence to the material, though it wasn't a lot by any stretch of the means, just a little bit. I'm gonna lay this up here for now while I flip this over, which I'm gonna do a couple things. I'm gonna do some readjustments here before I start flipping. Pull that this way. Okay, so I've got everything kind of realigned. We're gonna do a very gentle turn. So you can see pink is now at the top, green is at the bottom. Well, I guess for you it might be the opposite, but you can see that it's turned around. I'm going to lay it out. I want to pull out as many wrinkles as I can, because as you start felting, if there is a wrinkle, you will felt that wrinkle in if you don't fix it. Okay, so we're gonna make sure to pull out as many wrinkles as we can. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. All right, we can kind of see the seam, but I'm okay with that. It does. I don't think it hurts it too much. All right, now we're gonna put our, you can also see where I've folded over on the edges here and on this side, which is fine. Again, I knew that that was gonna happen, and that's fine with me. I don't need a two-sided scarf. I'm okay with it being a single side, but I do want it to be nice and clean and neat. So that's done. We're gonna lay this back out on it, just like so. I am not gonna add more water at this point. I do not think that it needs it. It's definitely wet. But I am gonna keep agitating it, try and pull some of that soap through, and make sure that this side got just as much agitation as the other side did, so that we get a nice level of adherence. All right. The next step is we are going to roll this up, and then we are going to set it to roll. So I am going to take my end, I'm going to fold it over. Actually, wait a minute. What am I doing? I need that netting on there. Don't know why I took that off. All right, so I'm going to put the netting back on, because obviously we need that on there so it doesn't stick to the towels. Or to itself, because that would also be a problem. All right, let's try this again. So, got this out. I am going to just give it a quick brush down. I'm not as worried now with getting creases, and you'll see why in just a second, but I am going to make sure that it's just kind of back down the way it was. You will not have to do this step if you don't take it off like I did, not thinking. Okay, so I am going to take my towel, I'm going to fold it like this, and then I am going to tightly start to roll my scarf. This is a tight roll, but you want it to be, you don't want to get any creases in. So I'm just going to give that a little pull. I'm going to keep rolling. And when I start to see a little bit pool in front of my roll, I will come over here and just give it a bit of a tug and keep going. There. This step is as important as the agitation that we've been doing up to this point. So take your time in rolling. Doesn't hurt anything to take an extra minute to try and get it to look how you want it to. So, I'm going to slide this towel up. And both towels are damp, but you can see they're not soaking wet, which is what we want. And you also may notice I'm not adding more water at this point because there's plenty of water on the scarf already. So I had to use 2 towels because I didn't have a towel long enough for what I wanted to do. If you only have to use 1, you're not going to have this problem. But if you use 2, just make sure that you get that seam in there. I will wrap it all the way, because the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take this and we are going to roll it backward, forward, about 100 times. And again, we're just adding more agitation. Just making all those fibers stick together. You can do it by time, you can do it by minute, so about 10 minutes, 100 rolls. If you have a friend that you're doing it with, you can each stand at one end of the table and just kind of roll it back and forth. Kids will really like doing that. If you want, this is a great project for kids. You don't have to use anything sharp, anything toxic. And then at the end, they can hop on the bubble wrap and just have a hay old time. I'm not saying that that's what I do as an adult, but let's just say my bubble wrap tends to be one-time use. I will try and go through and massage different sections as I roll, just to make sure that each section is getting some pressure, some agitation, and we're squeezing out any excess water. Now, I'm going to unroll and re-roll this because I have an end sticking out here that's not getting agitation. I'm also going to speed the video up so you do not have to watch the full time of me doing this, but again, just remember 10 minutes or 100 rolls, and then we'll check it. Okay, so let's unwrap and see what we got. We got a couple creases in there, but I think I'll be able to pull those ones out. Look how cute. All right. Now, I still have soap in here, and I don't want the soap to dry in there. So after I check it and decide that it's good to go, I am going to put just a touch of water on it. I do want to check and see. Uh-oh. That's not good. All right, so as I was going through and checking it, I went and checked the seam, and look at that. It has not felted together at all. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to get some of this on there. Get it agitated, irritated. Really tick it off here. We really want it to be agitated. And really get in there and felt that down. Really go at that seam. Now, if you are doing the feather method with this, you will not have to worry about that. Those little pieces facing in different directions, they're going to grab onto each other. You might have a little section, but you're not going to have this huge seam straight down the center like I did on this one. This was a special circumstance because I wanted to keep the integrity of these bats. Let's see how that's looking a little bit better. So we really want to get in there. Now this side looks fine. It's just that side that did not stick. All right, so that seems to be a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to refill my bucket again, or my little bowl here. It's not really a bucket. Set my soap aside. All right, we got clean water here. Oh, well. That is a problem. All right, there we go. I'm just putting a little bit of water on. Plain water, no soap this time. Not doing too much. We did a little bit on that side. We'll do a little bit on this side. All right, now I'm going to take this, going to lay it on top, and I'm going to roll just in this. I'm going to leave the bubble wrap behind. The idea here is that we're going to be able to dry this And you see it peels right away from the bubble wrap. No problems at all. It's a smooth plastic against the natural fiber, and the natural fiber has no chance of really getting in there. So I'm gonna set this bubble wrap aside. I will try and save it for another project. I make no promises that it will not get popped. Can you hear that? It makes such a satisfying sound. All right, so this towel is a little bit drier. The coral colored towel is a little bit drier than the gray towel, so I'm gonna roll out onto that. Unfortunately, you probably can't see the colors as well against this color, but we don't need to see the colors just yet. Taking all of my bits and bobs away here again. Hopefully we will not need them back. I'll lay this out, and now I'm gonna roll it up in just the towel. And what that's gonna do, what is that gonna do? It's a towel. It's gonna suck the moisture away. I know. I am breaking new ground in science here. But that's all we're gonna do. We're just gonna roll it up. Now I will say, if you buy the felting kits, the bubble wrap that comes with it is a little bit more stable, a little bit sturdier, more like an industrial bubble wrap, that thicker plastic, which is nice for this rolling process because it does give a little bit more structure. I think I've said that word about 1,000 times, but a little bit more structure to your roll. Pull this one away. And all I'm doing now is just trying to get the moisture out without having to like stick it in the dryer or anything. I will probably hang it for a little bit once it's done, but we want to get an idea of what it's going to look like, and this is going to let us see. So there we go. Set this towel aside as well. And here we go. It is actually almost dry. When you have felted wool, it is more resistant to water and flame because there's very little oxygen in between the fibers. However, it will still get wet. It will still eventually catch on fire. You can see my seam is not super beautiful. I could have done better there, but overall, I like this. It kind of makes me think of the cow animal hides that you see a lot. Cow animal hides. Like the longhorn hides and stuff that you see a lot of here in Texas. Maybe it's a butterfly hide, I don't know. But I do love the look of it. It is very soft, not just from the olive oil soap, but it's also it's gonna be very flowy, you can tell. You can see that the seam on this side is looking pretty good. It does have adherence here, it does have adherence here. It just didn't adhere much on the other side, and I'm not sure why. We'll have to see what happens once it's fully dry. So I'm gonna leave this out while I clean up the mess that I've made, and we'll come back when it's dry and take a peek and see how it's doing. Okay, so we have a dry scarf and it's all done. I actually love the way it came out. I wish the seam would have been a little bit tighter. I think part of that came from just all the fibers being in the same direction, and it just didn't have the ability to adhere. But since that'll be on the back of my neck when I wear it as a scarf, I'm not angry at it. It'll be fine. I hope that this inspires you to go through some of your roving, or maybe go buy roving for the first time and try out some felting. It's really fun. And if you have the inclination for sewing, the applications are just endless. And if you're like me and you don't, then you can have some of the prettiest scarves on the block, no matter what climate you're in, even if you are here in hot, hot Texas. So I hope you enjoyed, and happy felting, and we'll see you soon. Oh, and make sure to like and subscribe. I will get better at reminding people about that, but have a good day. Bye.